It began with a letter, aged parchment folded neatly into an envelope bearing a wax seal I didn't recognize. I almost threw it away. It looked like something out of a period drama, not the kind of mail a broke 28-year-old barista in a cramped studio apartment gets on a Tuesday. Inside it read, "To Eleanor Price, heir of the Hollow estate. The property, known as Hollow Manor, is now yours following the passing of Florence Price. The manor awaits." I didn't know any Florence Price. The name stirred no memories, but curiosity and desperation make fast friends. Rent was overdue. My car was hanging on by a thread. A free house, even if it was a creepy old estate in the middle of nowhere, sounded like a miracle. The drive took hours into the Massachusetts countryside. As the GPS gave up, the trees thickened, and the road narrowed to a single lane swallowed by fog. At last, there it was. Hollow Manor. It loomed like a sleeping giant, 3 stories of rotting wood, Gothic arches, and black iron gates overrun with vines. The porch sagged. Windows stared out like hollow eyes. It wasn't welcoming. It was watching. Inside, the air was musty, layered with years of silence. Dust curled in beams of dying sunlight. Antique furniture stood as if untouched. Portraits lined the hallway, all bearing gaunt faces with hollow stares. I recognized none of them. One painting had a nameplate. Florence Price, 1903 to 1994. Her eyes looked sharper than paint should allow, almost knowing. There was a note on the grand piano in the drawing room. "Do not stay past the 5th night. The walls remember." A joke, I thought. Some strange family quirk or an old relative's eccentricity. But still I read it again. The handwriting trembled, like it had been written in fear. I unpacked and decided to stay in the library, the coziest room I could find. It had a fireplace and a single, towering bookshelf. As night fell, the silence deepened. No traffic. No neighbors. Just the crackle of the fire and the occasional groan of wood shifting with age. Then I heard it. A whisper. Faint, almost hidden beneath the sound of the wind through the cracks. "Eleanor." I froze. My name. Not in a dream. Not my imagination. A whisper, clear, deliberate. I stood, heart thudding, and turned slowly toward the hallway. Empty. I checked every room on the first floor. Nothing. No signs of entry. No one hiding. But the whisper returned as I passed the grandfather clock. "Come back." That night I barely slept. Not because of the whisper, but because when I returned to the library, the portrait of Florence Price had been placed on the mantel, facing me directly. I never moved it. Morning arrived without sunlight, just a cold gray mist that clung to the windows like mold. I barely slept. My mind couldn't shake the sound of that whisper, or how that portrait moved on its own. Trying to distract myself, I explored the upper floors. Most doors were jammed shut or led to dust-choked rooms filled with antiques draped in yellowing sheets. But one hallway was different, longer than it should have been, with warped wood and a chill that clung to the back of my neck. At the end was a door I hadn't noticed before. Smaller, iron knob cold to the touch. It groaned open to reveal a narrow staircase spiraling upward into darkness. Against my better judgment, I climbed. The stairs ended at a rounded attic chamber. The walls were lined with mirrors, 12 of them full length, arranged in a perfect circle. Each one stood on a wooden base carved with strange symbols. Most were fogged with age, but one in the center gleamed, spotless, untouched by time. I stepped into the center of the circle. My reflection in the clean mirror stared back at me. Same hair, same tired eyes. But then it smiled. I didn't. The breath caught in my throat. I stepped back. My reflection didn't move. Instead, it leaned forward and mouthed something. "We're still here." Suddenly, the other mirrors began to change. In the fogged glass, faint outlines appeared, faces. Pale, hollow-eyed, sunken with time. Dozens of them, staring. Watching. They began to whisper. A chorus of voices overlapping. "You shouldn't have come back. The walls remember you. We remember you." The room tilted. My vision blurred. I stumbled back down the stairs, nearly falling. When I looked behind me, the door to the mirror room had vanished. Just wall where it had been. Back in the library, I scoured the journals and papers left behind by Florence. Her final entries were frantic, disjointed. They come through the mirrors. It started after the storm in 43. The manor opened. It let them in. The mirrors are anchors. I smashed one and it screamed. "I'm sorry, I didn't know they could feel." The walls, they're alive. They remember everything. Every scream. Every tear. Every secret. I slammed the journal shut, heart racing. I didn't understand what was happening yet, but one thing was clear. I wasn't alone in Hollow Manor. That night, I covered every mirror I could find. Bedsheets, towels, curtains, anything. But it didn't help. The whispers came louder now. And this time, they didn't wait for nightfall. They started speaking from inside the walls. I woke to the sound of scratching. Not mice. Not branches tapping the window. This came from inside the walls, steady, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across old wood. The whispers had grown bolder, overlapping now in layers of ghostly tones that tickled the edge of comprehension. One voice stood out, sharper than the rest. "Find the truth, Eleanor." I followed the noise down the first-floor hallway, barefoot on creaking wood, until it stopped outside the dining room. A gust of cold air brushed past me as I opened the door. The massive table stretched across the center, still set with dusty china and tarnished silverware, as though the family had just stepped away mid-meal, decades ago. Candles, long melted, clung to their holders like withered hands. That's when I saw the panel. A seam in the wall behind the cabinet, barely visible, but enough to catch the eye if you were being led to it. I pushed. The panel gave way with a groan, revealing a narrow passage lit by a single, flickering bulb that shouldn't have worked. I stepped inside. The air changed instantly, thicker, damp, and heavy with mildew. The passage descended steeply, curling beneath the house. I followed it until I reached a stone chamber lined with shelves. Dozens of them, each one packed with leather-bound journals and brittle papers. Florence's handwriting again. But these weren't diaries. They were records. Births. Deaths. Medical reports. All carefully catalogued. And then newspaper clippings. Tragedies. Accidents. Murders. All linked to the Price family. June 3, 1943, infant stillborn. Marked with mirror sigil. Disposed of in accordance with ritual. October 14, 1951, Jonathan Price found hanging in library. Claimed he saw the faces smile. August 8, 1977, Florence begins mirror cleansing rites. Failed. Spirits now active. Dozens more followed. Generations of torment. It wasn't just the house, it was the bloodline. My bloodline. Suddenly, something shifted behind me. A whisper, hot breathy, brushed my ear. "You're the last, Eleanor." I turned, but the passage was empty. Or it looked empty. My heart thundered as I fled up the stairs, the walls pressing in closer with every step. The air felt alive, like lungs inhaling around me. Back in the library, I slammed the hidden panel shut. My reflection in the dusty window stared back, just slightly off. Her eyes shimmered. Her lips moved. They're inside now. The manor wasn't just haunted. It was inhabited. And it had claimed every member of my family before me. Now it wanted me too. On the fourth night, the manor refused to let me sleep. The lights flickered every time I blinked. Doors creaked open on their own. The whispers had evolved, less like speech now, more like breathing. Rhythmic, heavy, surrounding me like a circle tightening. Desperate, I tried leaving. I packed a bag, rushed outside, and made it to my car, but the engine wouldn't even try to turn over. My phone had no signal. When I looked back at the house, the front door was wide open, and all the lights inside were glowing warm and golden, like it was inviting me back. When I stepped back inside, the door slammed shut behind me. The whispers hissed. Almost home. I ran upstairs. My last hope was the attic, the room with the mirrors. Maybe if I faced them, if I understood them, I could break whatever this was. I had nothing else left to try. The hallway had changed. Where there had once been 10 steps to the attic, there were now 20, then 30. The corridor stretched like elastic, the walls pulsating faintly, almost breathing. I felt like I was walking through the throat of something alive. Finally, I reached the attic door. It was already open. Inside, the mirrors were uncovered again. Every single one of them, pristine, and yet none showed my reflection. Instead, I saw scenes. Each mirror held a different part of the manor, rooms from earlier in the week. The dining room, the staircase, the library, but they were alive in the reflections. Shadows moved where none should be. In the library, I saw myself, sitting still, eyes blank. In the hallway, I saw Florence, her face twisted in sorrow. And in the center mirror, the same one that had mimicked me on the first night, I saw my grandmother again. Florence. Only this time, she was looking through the glass. "I tried to stop them," she said, her voice distant, muffled like underwater speech. "But it started with me, and it must end with you." Suddenly, she reached out. Her hand pressed against the glass, and so did mine, though I never moved. My body, inside the reflection, was no longer my own. The door behind me slammed shut. The mirrors cracked, one by one, thin fractures slicing across the surfaces like spiderwebs. Whispers screamed now, no longer soft but shrill and angry. "You belong here. We are you. Join the family." I screamed and swung a heavy lamp into the center mirror. Glass exploded outward. A shockwave of cold air blasted through the attic, throwing me backward into the wall. And then silence. All the mirrors were dark. Every single one blank. I lay there for a long time, shivering, heart racing, waiting for the voices. But they were gone. Or so I thought. Then I heard it again, barely audible. Not in my ears. In my mind. One night left. The manor was quiet. Not peaceful. Not calm. Just quiet in that unnatural way that makes your skin tighten, like the world is holding its breath. I stood in the ruins of the attic mirror room, surrounded by shards of broken glass. My reflection, if it still existed, was nowhere to be found. But the voice inside my mind had returned. One night left. I descended the stairs slowly, feeling something watching me with every step. The house no longer creaked beneath my weight. It listened. Back in the library, I found the final journal. Florence's last words were scrawled in jagged handwriting, smeared and hurried. They need a soul to stay tethered. The mirror was their gate. I shattered it, but the price remains unpaid. Only blood can end it. My blood. Our blood. It clicked then. The manor had taken everyone else. One by one, trapped them in glass, in walls, in memories that wouldn't fade. It fed on them. And now it wanted me. But not in fear. In acceptance. I stood in front of the fireplace, staring at the family portrait. My great-grandfather, my grandmother Florence, the rest of them, all stiff and grim in oil paint. And then, right before my eyes, their faces turned. Slowly. One by one. They smiled. The portrait shifted like a screen flickering. Their eyes moved, their mouths twisted open. "Stay with us, Eleanor. We're lonely. You're the last." I backed away, heart hammering, until my hand brushed against something smooth behind the curtain. A final mirror. The one I hadn't covered. It was no longer a reflection, it was a window. Behind the glass was the manor again, dimly lit and alive, but distorted like an old photograph left in rain. And standing inside it was me. Pale. Expressionless. I knew then I had one chance left. I grabbed the last page of Florence's journal. She'd scribbled a ritual. A binding meant to trap the spirits. But it needed a sacrifice. Blood willingly given. Tears stung my eyes. My hands shook. I whispered the words, my voice low, ancient syllables clumsy on my tongue. Then, with the mirror before me, I pressed the broken shard of glass to my palm. The cut was deep. The glass drank the blood like ink. The house screamed. Not just through the walls, but inside the walls, in the floorboards, the ceiling. Every voice I'd heard before cried out at once in a final, echoing wail. No. The mirror cracked, then burst. And just like that, silence. Not the terrifying kind. Real silence. Freeing. The portrait returned to stillness. The walls no longer whispered. The air felt lighter. I left Hollow Manor that morning barefoot, bleeding but alive. I didn't look back, not even once. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I catch a glimpse in a dark window. A version of me that doesn't move when I do. She only smiles. And I remember the last words the house whispered before the glass shattered. "You can leave, Eleanor, but not all of you will."